Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Hi, Rob Browne here with you on this Thursday, college football, college basketball blitz. Gonna have a lot of fun today. Got a first-time guest on here, Jerry Kerby, a football Wizard of Oz. I don't think, excuse me, I don't think I've ever met anybody like Jerry Kerby. Comes to NFL, college football. I wish Jimmy was on here today. It would be the dueling banjos, but Jimmy is in transit. He called me last night. We were on the way back from Atlanta and said that he and his wife and his daughter are going to head down to Knoxville to see his mom for Christmas. And they were getting out of Dodge, Lake Zurich, Illinois, about 30 miles north of Chicago before they got snowed in. It is cold. It's going to be colder. And so Jimmy is off the grid today. Jerry Kerby is checking in with us from Clarksville, Tennessee. Watches every NFL game, and the ones he doesn't watch, he tapes and goes back and watches them later. Also a college whiz as well. Second segment, Gary Harris, Tide 100.9, WVUA TV, Channel 23 in Tuscaloosa. Does a great show with our good friend of Tider Insider, Rodney Orr, every Tuesday nights at 6:30 on Alabama. Also covers the Crimson Tide in SEC and college football. Gary Harris does, again, Tide 100.9 every day, 9 to 11. Also, top of hour number 2, the AD angle, the athletic director's angle. All the questions you want to know. How much money do colleges and universities actually make? We hear about these big numbers in terms of revenue, but there are costs, there's scholarships, Title IX obligations that you have to cover. Bottom line, we're going to find out those numbers today. Matt Dean and John Hartwell will be on with us in the second hour. Going to be a lot of fun. We're here every Monday through Saturday, 2 hours every day, www.sidelines.live. Hear us live on that address. If you miss us, go to 680thefan.com, the podcast park. I was over there, excuse me, Tuesday. Had lunch with Chuck Oliver. It was great to see him. Love that guy. Him and Dan Matthews are first class. Every day, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern, Southern Sports Today, all college football. Put that app on your phone. Listen to us, listen to them. Gary, we had a great lineup, great people covering college football, basketball, baseball, people that actually love college and are against anything that makes college sports more like pro sports. That's why we have separation. That's why we have different ones. That's why there's men and women. There's no in between. I mean, come on. Holy shnikes, Tommy boy. But anyway, follow us on Twitter at Sidelines_live. Love to have people that follow us. We try to put out information. We're a sports radio show and podcast. That's what we do. That is who we are. We don't play in the political gutter. We're not going to preach to you and tell you what you think. Shut up and dribble, okay? I mean, so my deal is start talking, Rob. Start talking, Jerry. Jerry, glad to have you on here this morning. It is football season. It is bowl season. You can't have enough college football. But without college football, there's really no pro football. That's something that people, I think with a brain, understand. But, man, when you break down why pro football looks for certain things NFL teams do at every position down into the college level. Of course, it starts with Little League, Pop Warner, middle school, high school. It's really fascinating. It's like me studying the stock market, trends and moving averages, and for opportunities to buy. If you had a stock you liked at 50, now it's at 30, but it's the same company making the same product, and you like it, get in there and buy it. That's the only business where if we put our products on sale, people don't want to take our calls. But if you have the mall have a 50 or 60% off sale, Jerry, you know this being married, and I do too, our wives will sleep in their cars to be the first ones at the front door. So Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy Hanukkah. It started Sunday night, goes through the 26th at sundown. And Jerry, let's get right down to business, man. Pro football, it's the most valuable brand in the world. And it's bigger than soccer in terms, I think it is. But what are you seeing now and we talked about topics of discussion. Quarterbacks. What's happening to that position from what college is sending? Do they just take what they get? Because it's getting harder to find great elite type Peyton Manning quarterbacks, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Thanks for on the show today. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this: when you look at a quarterback, what do you look? Do you look at height? Do you look at speed? Do you look at dual threat? What do you look for in a pro quarterback if you're a pro scout?
I'm looking at height and the quarterbacks that are aggressive, the throw down the field, and throwing in tight coverages, because those are Super Bowl winning quarterbacks.
Yeah. And Jerry, you talk about the windows that you have in pro football and with elite defensive backs. They close quickly, don't they?
They sure do, yes.
So you get a quarterback. Like, how is Jalen Hurts, despite what so many so-called experts, and I always believed in this guy. I watched him at Alabama. Why is he having so much success with Philadelphia?
He's in the right system, and he's got two really good receivers, and Devontae Smith and A.J. Browne. And they have a good running game too, and that sets up the deep throws down the field.
Has a running quarterback ever won the Super Bowl? Can we call Patrick Mahomes a running quarterback?
No, there has never been a running quarterback has won the Super Bowl, and I don't think Patrick Mahomes is a running quarterback, because I think you have to have over 100 rushing attempts to be considered as a running quarterback.
Yeah. Well, you think about what's out there, and you watch a lot of college, you watch a lot of pro football. Quarterback wise, who are the best? Give me your best 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the NFL.
The ones that can spin the ball real good, I would have to go with Aaron Rodgers, Joe Burrow, and the MVP frontrunner, I think, is Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, and he's been in the league from Michigan State for 25 years. It's just, how does this guy? What is it that keeps him going? I mean, I see Colt McCoy out there with the Arizona Cardinals. Last time I remember him doing anything was the first quarter of the national championship game against Alabama in the Rose Bowl, January of 2010, when I don't know if his ulna or his elbow or something got hit by Marcel Darius, and he's out of the game. But what is it? 13 years later, he's still in the league.
Yep, that's correct. Longevity, in good systems, and it works hard, and being dedicated as a backup quarterback, because you never know when your name's getting called.
Yeah. All right, now let's break down looking at college. At college, you look at college football, you look at pro football, Big Ten, SEC, ACC, Pac-12, Big 12. I mean, those are your big, what they call the Power Five. We had Jim Nagy on the show yesterday, executive director of the Reese's Pieces Mobile Senior Bowl. And I reminded him, and he reminded me, that last year, 40% of the players taken in the NFL draft played in the Senior Bowl. The year before, it was 41%. So they want to get that number back up. Now, a player, if you graduate early in 3 years, you can go to the Senior Bowl. But you know what was interesting? Something he said? He said, if we see a guy that's played on what they call, a group of 5 or just small school level, I'd say small in terms of exposure. North Dakota State's a good example. And they get out there, they watch for them, because sometimes they'll go up against somebody from Alabama or Georgia and get beaten badly and be hanging their head for the rest of the time. They're quick to catch on that. But you know what he also says? A lot of the best offensive linemen are at the FCS level schools. It's about development, isn't it?
Sure is. I can think of an offensive lineman that came from an FCS school last year, and Trevor Bennington from Northern Iowa.
Yeah, that's it. I think he was at the Senior Bowl, wasn't he?
Yes, he was, and he was a freak. I've heard
Yeah.
really good things about him.
Well, you're the one. I think you put something out last year when he was at the Senior Bowl. And, Jim Nagy, his background, 18 years in the NFL. He did a Super Bowl. He won one as an assistant director of scouting with the Packers. He won 2 with the Patriots with Bill Belichick and 1 with Pete Carroll and the Seahawks. 4 out of 6. That ain't bad. Meatloaf always said 2 out of 3 ain't bad. But I don't have a Super Bowl ring, Jerry. I don't know if you do. But I think when you look at that guy, Trevor Bennington, coming from Northern Iowa. Imagine he wasn't on anybody's radar out of high school. Wasn't even a 2-star. Probably was just non-rated. I want your answer. I'm gonna ask you this question. My opinion is, in the lower, lesser populated areas, the recruiting services don't even look at a lot of these guys. They're deep discount value stocks is what we're going to call them. Okay, small cap, small to mid cap, SMID cap. They don't look at them. They're looking at these high-profile guys that are going to the big schools. I think last year, 56 of the top 100 high school football players signed with 6 schools. And so that tells you that I think there's a lot of lazy people out there. There's some really good ones, but there's a lot of lazy people out there evaluating and doing recruiting rankings. Would you agree or disagree, and tell me why?
I agree. I mean, you hit it perfect. I mean, yeah, it's laziness. I mean, it doesn't take much. I got all the high school packages, all 50 states, and it's a cheap price, and I love it. And going back to the 2000s, you think the scouts would learn, because Boise State in the 2000s, they got like 1 to 3-star players, and after they graduated, they were 5-star. They were 5-star and went to the NFL.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I know in Brian Harson's career, oh boy, I'm familiar with him. And my therapist has told me not to talk too much about him. I get angry. But in his 7 years there at Boise State, he had 17 players, I think, that went on and played in the NFL, but only 4 or 5 4-stars. And I don't think that means that there are not any good players in the Pacific Northwest, Jerry. I think they go heavily into California, Washington State, Oregon. No, Oregon, there are not a lot of people there. I bet you less than 20% of Oregon's roster is in state. But California, it's up there with Texas and Florida. I think they were used to guys coming to them and developing them. And they were also, the biggest rooster in the hen house. I mean, and they didn't. And then he comes down to Auburn. All of a sudden, he's trying to pick a fight in a bar at 3:00 in the morning. He looks around. There's a Ranger. There's a Delta Force. There's a SEAL. There's Air Force Commando. There's Marine Recon. There's Green Beret over there. Who you gonna fight? Georgia, Alabama, LSU, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Texas A&M, Florida. Where are you gonna go? I mean, I think Auburn should have fired him with cause, Jerry. $15.3 million, and say, you didn't do your job. I heard Hugh Freeze and his staff in the last 3 weeks, Jerry, have visited more schools and done more in terms of recruiting than Harsin did in the previous 2 years. I don't know about you, Jerry, but when I was a kid, I always wanted to be a policeman, a fireman, or a garbage man. If I'm a kid today, when I grow up, you know what I want to be? I want to be an SEC or Power 5 college football coach that gets fired and get the big buyout. How about you?
Yeah, it sounds like a good deal. I mean, I think the ADs are just lazy in their job search, because if I was an AD, I would be under 2 things. I say, you're going to be a winner. I mean, your resume is going to have to be great. And second of all is you better teach these players, and I want to see them develop. Those are the two major things.
Yeah, and you go back, Jerry, in college football, and you look at programs like Nebraska. They're the third or fourth winningest program still in college football history. They were getting kids. They had scholarships, 2 scholarships for every county in Nebraska. So they could bring all these walk-ons in and develop them. And I think today, wouldn't you agree? We got about a minute and a half before the break, and then we'll come back. But you tell a kid now that's 17 or 18 that's got $1 million NIL deal that he's going to have to spend 2 or 3 years in the weight room developing before he'll probably be a significant contributor. What do you think he's going to tell you? We can't say it on the air, I know.
Yeah. Yeah, he's probably say, screw that. I want the money. Our society is today about the youth is give me, then earn it.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. The NFL is getting that way too, especially like Kyler Murray, $200 million contract. Doesn't have to study nothing, plays Call of Duty. And it shows on game day how he is,
Yeah. Yeah, and I like what you say. Kyler Murray's 5'8", maybe 5'9". And I think his contract, Jerry, if I'm not mistaken, is $250 million.
Yeah.
I mean, for what? And he runs around. And again, I want to see one of these scramblers. What's the play called? Just run like crazy. It's what it is, isn't it?
Yep. I mean, he's in an air raid offense. Oh.
Yeah, Jerry, hold this. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to be right back talking with Jerry Kerby, football Wizard of Oz, on stats and information. We're going to be right back after this.
Hey y'all, it's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right. Hey, Jerry Kerby is with us right now. Football Wizard of Oz, I'm going to call you that, because I have, last couple of years at Thanksgiving, watched football with you, and you make meaningful comments on everything going on TV. I think it's really cool. Your wealth of knowledge is fascinating. And I think you just hit on something. Kyler Murray is typical of a lot of these young quarterbacks. How much studying are they doing? We have Jason Campbell, played at Auburn, Taylorsville, Mississippi, first-round draft pick for the Washington Redskins. And he talked about, because I thought I had a lot of work in college. You get in the NFL, you practice all day, you're in team meetings, you get home, and you got a fax machine or your printer is just loaded up with stacks of paperwork. It's plays you've got to learn. And you're getting paid a lot of money. And in that contract, it says this, this, and this to get this money. If you don't do it, they'll get rid of you. It's a business. But it seems like the more we've gone to these spread offenses and these hurry up, no huddles, I'll tell you what it did to Auburn. Finding a quality offensive lineman with Gus Malzahn the last, few years, and then with Harsin was the unicorn. Now Hugh Freeze has come in. He's starting to get some again. But I go back, Braden Smith is an offensive lineman for the Indianapolis Colts. Jerry, you probably remember him out of Olathe, Kansas. second round draft pick out of Auburn in April of 2018 draft. He said it publicly in the Indianapolis Star. He said the offense that I played in at Auburn, as much fun as it was, we won a lot of games and all, did not prepare me for life in the NFL. But because he was 6'6", 320 pounds, could bench press around 600 pounds, and looked like Drago from the Rocky movie. By the way, that's his nickname. He was able to catch up. But think about how many offensive linemen and quarterbacks, Jerry, because of these crazy spread and no huddle, hurry up, no huddle offenses are coming into the NFL. They don't know come here from Sikkim, do they?
No, they don't. A lot of it has to do with, for the NFL, reason why they just don't got enough one-on-one drills, team drills, and stuff like that. I mean, they eliminated a lot of stuff,
Well, they do. Are they having to just dumb it down because these kids don't have a clue? Because if you look at the NFL, is it as good a league top to bottom, in your opinion? And you watch a lot of football. You watch every team, all 32 teams, Jerry. I want your answer. Is the NFL is strong top to bottom in terms of quality of play? Not whether it's entertaining or not, but in terms of quality of play as it was 10, 20, 30 years ago?
Absolutely not. I mean, the quarterback play is just horrible. I mean, you got MLB pitchers playing quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, that's it's just I wonder. There's no Peyton Manning out there. There's no John Elway out there. There's no Oliver Luck. I mean, not Oliver Luck. Andrew Luck. I mean, I think those kind of guys, they're dinosaurs, aren't they?
Yep. That's correct. I mean, they'll be hard to find.
Yeah. All right. Now, another thing before we go, and just give me your thoughts on what is happening in college football today. Again, with you look at, is it a problem that starts in high school? Like the Texas High School Football Coaches Convention. There'll be 15,000 coaches there. That's head coaches and the whole staff. And it's a big event they have every year in the state of Texas. And they push that hurry up, no huddle offense. Then you think about the 7-on-7, drills and camps all over the country. What about the linemen? I guess they don't matter, do they? I think that's what's causing the problem. Would you agree?
Oh, yes, I do. I was reading up on it. I would be concerned, because I mean, you're gonna get some quarterbacks hurt, like blinds, like you miss a block and stuff, and then a lot of them, their techniques they're taught differently, like in different systems, like triple option, you go into a spread and stuff like that. I mean, that differentials as well. Like sometimes they're in a 2-point stance, sometimes they're in a 3-point stance.
Well, we have Wesley Britt on the show, played offensive tackle in the NFL for the New England Patriots. He was telling us about one day, he played 5 years, won 2 Super Bowls. So one day he was in a 3 inches or 6 inches apart, whatever he was doing on his stance, where his hands were. He was off by 3 inches. He said Bill Belichick came up to him after practice and said, Wesley, you need to get that right, or you're going to have to be finding something else to do. I mean, they demand the perfection in the NFL. If you make it 5 years in the NFL, that's a long time. And then you got guys like a Carlos Dansby who played 16, maybe 17 years. Takeo Spikes, 15 years. Charles Woodson, 17 years. Just as I see it, I think that it starts in high school. And with what we're paying, I see where Texas's average NIL deal per player average is $262,000, according to On3 Sports. Jerry, how motivated is a kid when he's 17 or 18 getting that kind of money?
Not motivated at all. I mean, like I said, it's just give me, but I didn't earn it.
Yeah. I mean, all the kids are doing it, like you said about Kyler Murray. Are they going back home at night and studying the playbook, that's what you used to do as a quarterback. And I mean, give me your prediction on who's going to win. Who do you think will be in the Super Bowl?
Right now I got Cincinnati versus Minnesota. I believe I would have to, San Francisco's there. I just have to look at Purdy, the new quarterback for the 49ers.
Yeah.
And he's going to be playing against a good Washington Commanders defense this weekend. So we could tell, on after Sunday if he's actually legit.
Yeah. All right. So you've got Minnesota and Cincinnati in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So keep going.
It's because both of them are aggressive, and like I said, Super Bowl winning quarterbacks always throw in the teeth of the defense, like in the cover 2, man-to-man. Cover 2. I mean, you got to throw it in there in the tight windows. That's how you win Super Bowls. Not chucking it down all the time. I mean, a lot of quarterbacks just chuck it down.
Yeah. Well, Joe Burrow. Okay. How good? I mean, that is one of the better stories in college football and NFL because he got hurt last year. But Cincinnati pretty strong last year. You look at give me 2 other teams that you think are close, and if some things happen, they could be in the Super Bowl.
In the AFC, I kind of like Miami, the Dolphins. Wow. I mean, they played really well in the snow on Saturday. Like, what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, okay, who else?
It would have to be the 49ers.
Okay.
But the thing is why I think Minnesota is better than the 49ers, because the 49ers don't have any outside receivers. They all have slot receivers. That's why Deebo Samuel plays a wide back, which is he plays running back and wide receiver.
Yeah.
Because they don't have no outside threats.
Yeah. And Deebo Samuel, remember, he broke his leg as a rookie, or did he break it at South Carolina? And he came back, made a complete recovery. All right, one more question before we go, because I've got Gary Harris from Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa coming on here. You look at the number of guys that are quitting on their teams. They use the term opt out. I'm not going to give them that benefit. I don't like that. Either you're present or you're a quit. Okay. Guys have always faced the possibility of getting hurt. I mean, Jerry, you could get hurt driving to the grocery store to go get, groceries with Rebecca. I mean, somebody could run into you. You could roll your ankle coming off the curb. I mean, what in the world has allowed us to think it's okay for players to quit? I mean, they've always made money, and they'll say, but the money now is just incredible. But really, name me examples of guys who've been hurt playing in bowl games that never got a chance to play in the NFL. I'm sure you can find some, but they're few and far between.
I can't think at the top of my head, but like Matt Corral, he got injured last year in a bowl game, but
yes,
and he's still in the NFL though. So just let you know.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to get worse. I think it's going to get worse when they start the college football, the 12 team playoff. Call me crazy, but I think there's going to be a lot of even if they make the playoffs, I think there's going to be a lot of guys opting out.
You really think, really so? Elaborate on that, Jerry. Jerry, I want you start talking. I mean, I'm asking you a lot of questions, but tell me why you think that'll happen, because I think they'd be insane. Of course, I think a lot of people are insane, but go ahead.
Well, because young kids don't chase trophies; they just want to chase money. I mean, that's the whole. They don't give a crap about a trophy, and they don't care about what their campus looks like and stuff like that. That's why I say, if I was a head coach, I would tell the AD not to invest in anything in the athletic department, because the kids are not going to stay very long. They're just going to go home and play video games. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think what you're on. Look, we're going to have a couple of ADs on in the second hour, Matt Dean and John Hartwell. We're going to get into the financing. And, I just look at schools are spending 60, 70, 80, 90 million plus on these football only facilities. I mean, they damn near do everything for them but breathe and brush their teeth. This is just, I think it's insane. I mean, I keep using this term, but Jerry, all right. So you've got your Super Bowl matchup is going to be Cincinnati versus Minnesota. And if it's not that, it's going to be, okay, you got Cincinnati and Miami. If it's not that, it's Miami and the 49ers. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Or vice, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, your in your opinion, I got to ask you this question. You watch every NFL game. Bill Belichick, his record with Tom Brady over here, his record without Tom Brady over there. How good a coach is Bill Belichick?
I think he's a remarkable coach, and I hate when you do this to me because I like both of them. And
I love it. I love Bill Belichick. Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge fan of his. Okay, I promise you.
I stole his mind master plans for like schemes and stuff like that, and I think it's not fair to say one's better than the other because I think New England's not running the same offense when Tom Brady was there because they're not utilizing their tight ends like they used to. They got Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. They're just blocking tight ends now. And they don't have a Gronkowski to come out, play outside receiver and then go deep. It's just a whole different offense.
Yeah. Well, it'd be fun to watch and see how they go. But I think Bill Belichick is an incredible coach. It's going to be fun. And Tom Brady will probably play into his 50s. That's just that's my prediction. Jerry, look, we got to get you back on. This is fun. I've got a bunch more topics I want to get into with you as we get further and further into the NFL season, the playoffs and whatever like that. But thank you for taking time to join us on the College Football and Basketball Thursday Blitz. And Merry Christmas. Y'all have fun up there. And we will talk to you here in the next few days.
Merry Christmas to you, and thanks for having me.
Hey, absolutely. That was fun. Jerry Kerby. All right. Now he's got, let's go to Gary Harris, Tide 100.9, one of our driving guests. I love it. He's got the WeatherTech Cup phone, possibly. I don't know what it is. Gary, how you doing?
Hey, Rob. Good morning. It's chilly, but nothing like it's going to be this time tomorrow morning. That's for sure.
Yeah, we were down in Atlanta. Went down Sunday afternoon for Mallory, my daughter that went to Alabama. She had her baby, and I said, "Where's her Alabama swaddling clothes? Where are they?" And they didn't have them at Buc-ee's at the Leeds exit. I got kind of mad, but she's got a whole box of Alabama stuff for Chandler Elizabeth. So anyway, we were coming back up to Memphis. Got back up here last night about 9:30. Came back a day early. It's going to be 3 degrees here in the morning. And remember the movie Ice Station Zebra?
Yeah.
In the Air Force or the Army, if you mess up really bad, they send you to a weather station up on the North Pole. Mm-hmm. It's going to be 3 degrees here in the morning. We're going to try to duck hunt. Should be fun. The icebreakers, but
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
I have no interest in getting out early in the morning at 3 degrees and duck hunting. To each their own. I can promise you won't find me out there.
Yeah, and the winds are supposed to be 35 to 40 mile an hour gust with negative mid-20s to minus 30 below wind chill. In fact, that's why Jimmy Hodge isn't on the show this morning. He called me last night and goes, "Hey, change the plans. I won't be on the show with you Thursday. Heather wants to leave early, so we're bolting out of Lake Zurich, north of Chicago, about 5 o'clock this morning. He headed down to Knoxville to see his mom for Christmas, him and his daughter and his wife. And he said, they're talking in terms of feet where he lives up there. So it is a wild time. But you know what? It's a great time for people to be shut-ins and homebound. Remember the old Chicago Cubs games on WGN? You come home from school in the afternoon because you and I are the same age. Yeah. Harry Carey here with Steve Stone, and he'd go, "Want to say hello to the shut-ins at St. Mary's Convent and the orphans down at St. Cecilia's. And give me another beer, Stone." But we got a lot of people listening and watching right now. They're home for Christmas and with their families and all. Let's talk about recruiting. Golly, man. Alabama, I mean, Look, Gary, where do you start? You're like the kid that woke up and inherited $1 billion. How would you like your money, in 10s or 20s? You know, it's just ridiculous.
Well, I certainly think, Rob, it proves that that Nick Saban's still, at the top of his game. And, even last year, I think when they finished maybe third, there were some, concerns about how Alabama would handle NIL and would deal with the, the changing landscape in recruiting. Well, I guess that was answered on Wednesday with the number 1 ranked recruiting class. In fact, according to the 247 Sports recruiting calculator, it's the highest rated class that Saban's ever had. And he's had number 1 classes, but this is the highest rated so far. And, it's phenomenal. They signed 27 players yesterday, 25 high school players and 2 from the junior college ranks. And, yesterday, keep thinking you're going to strike out, occasionally, and it just really didn't happen. They held on to Tony Mitchell from over at Thompson High School in Alabama.
Gary, hold that thought. Mildred just showed me the stopwatch. Paul, we got to take a break. We'll be right back.
Hey everyone, my name is David Wisdom.
And I'm Shelby McNeil, and we're attorneys with Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short, your local Auburn law firm. Established in 1959, right in the heart of Auburn, Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short has grown in response to our clients' legal needs. We're a full-service law firm focusing on the legal issues our clients face.
We take pride in providing our clients with exceptional legal services, ongoing communication, and skilled representation. If you have any questions about our services, please give us a call or visit our website today.
Harry Carey here with Steve Stone and Gary Harris. Let's go, Cubs. I tell you what, Gary, man, you know what? Life was so much fun when on Friday nights, I'd be over at my grandmother's a lot. My parents would drop my sisters and I off there so they could have go out to dinner or something. And you'd watch a Dean Martin roast. Foster Brooks, Don Rickles, Dean Martin with a scotch and water in one hand, a cigarette in the other. That's back when America was a man's country. And we need to return to that. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to say this about Nick Saban. He's not old. I think he's 70 or 71.
71, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And he takes care of himself. I think he's a regular celebrant at Mass. He's done a lot with his wife at the Saban Student Catholic Center in Tuscaloosa. It's the only place I have a lot of friends that are Alabama fans or just college football fans that go through Tuscaloosa when they're on business trips from Memphis to Mobile and everywhere in between just to go by there. It's amazing. Here he is. What's he doing? Is he throwing in the towel? We went 10-2 this year. No. He goes out and he has the number 1 recruiting class and the highest ever that he's had. So before the break, before Mildred told me we had to stop for a second, talk about the guys they got, because in-state of Alabama this year is one of the best years ever.
Yeah, it was. And, they lost a couple. They lost Peter Woods earlier in the process. They lost Peter Woods to Clemson and Kelby Collins. Peter Woods from Thompson, defensive end, edge pass rusher, and Kelby Collins, defensive lineman from Gardendale to Florida. But yesterday, on the guys that they were waiting on, and really weren't waiting on Tony Mitchell. He'd been a long-time commit, Rob, but there was a lot of chatter on Tuesday that he was going to flip to Auburn. And I think a lot of the Auburn recruiting people felt like that would happen. But then yesterday morning, he went ahead and signed with Alabama. And then yesterday afternoon, even though by the time it got around to 1 o'clock, I think most people felt like that Smith and Russaw, the dynamic defensive line duo out of Carver, Montgomery, would sign with Alabama. Still, that was a big hit because they really had not talked much about the recruiting process. In fact, yesterday after he signed, Russaw said, "I'm glad this is over with, man. I just want to play football. I'm not a big talker. I'm not a big recruiting guy." So, but those two guys are dynamic 5 stars on the same high school team, which you don't find very often. So that was kind of the cherry on top. Signed 27, 25 from the high school ranks, 2 junior college players. And, I wouldn't be shocked if they had 1 or 2, in the early period, or maybe even add a couple in February, or transfer portal players. So they're probably not done 100%, but to get back to what we were talking about, Rob, when you look at the current landscape of recruiting, I think there was some concern last year at this time about Alabama navigating the NIL, and you and I both know it's a different world. There's a lot of money being bandied about in terms of NIL. We're not sure exactly how each school handles it, but whatever Alabama did this year, it worked out well because they've got a great class on paper. Now the next job is to get them here and develop them, and then the third tier that you didn't used to have to worry about as much, Rob, now is not just signing them, getting them on campus, developing them, but retention. Getting them to stay in the program if things don't come quickly for them. That was even 5 years ago, for the most part, guys were going to stick it out because it was difficult to transfer. If you transferred, you had to sit out a year. If you transferred within the league, you had to sit out 2 years unless you got a waiver. And now you can leave anytime you want, and you can go to school and be eligible immediately. So you sign a class in 1 year, and you wonder by even this time next year, how many of those guys are going to still be in your program? I mean, you look at A&M, that Ballyhoo class they had last year that they signed, and it was called the highest rated or best class ever of all time. And look how many of those guys have already bailed. So you still enjoy recruiting and signing day, Rob. I don't enjoy it like I once did. And I didn't like having it 4 days before Christmas. I don't know how you feel about that, but it's very inconvenient, I think, for sportscasters and for a lot of people, for the high schools that put on these ceremonies and so forth. But still, it was fun. And you have a great class and you enjoy it for a moment, but then reality hits you that, Alabama's going to be right back to practice, getting ready for a bowl game, getting some of these guys in immediately. And then some of them coming in, in the spring and throughout the summer. And then you start getting ready for the 2023 season. And then at this time next year, like I said, out of the however many you sign, you wonder how many are still going to be in your program. So recruiting it really never did end, but now it truly doesn't end because I think you're continually recruiting players on your own team and on your own roster.
Yeah, and I think you're talking about Alabama and this being Nick Saban's highest rated class he's ever brought in, number one in the country, of course. Saying they may go get some more players in February. Remember the movie Jaws? After that first bout out there at sea with Quinn and Richard Dreyfuss and Brody, all of a sudden Brody looks out there, the Sharks coming back. He goes, I think you got your Zoom meeting, boys. It's kind of scary. Nick Saban and Alabama are going to go get some more guys, but I want to throw some numbers at you. And I put on my reading spectacles because it's so small. This is on Sport. They had this average NIL ranking, and I don't know how accurate that is, but Gary, in the second hour, we're going to have the AD angle. We're going to have Matt Dean from up at Rhodes College, who's been in athletics administration for 31 years and coaching, and he has a son on the staff at Oregon. And John Hartwell, former AD at Utah State, who's been back to El Dorado, Arkansas. And I just said, he'll be on at 9 a.m. this morning. And he said, 9 a.m. EDT. And I said, not Eastern Daylight Time. It's no El Dorado time. You got to love that. But John's from Mobile. But look at these average NIL rankings, Gary Harris. Alabama, it shows here 146,000. I guess that's per player. Georgia is number 2 at 104,000 per player. Now Miami is strange at 92,000, but look at Texas at number 4. Drum roll, please. 282,000. Now, the 5th one, Ohio State, average was 80 or 98,000. Now that information was provided to me by Dr. Waller May Veterinary Clinic, Tuscaloosa and Northport since 1964, founded by Dr. Wayne May. And they've been there, Tuscaloosa and Northport, not too far from the Casa. I'll just tell you that. Take your dog or cat in there to get worked on. Maybe during surgery, go get you a taco burger or something like that. But anyway, Gary, we had John Cohen on the show Monday, Auburn's new athletic director. Of course, he's from Tuscaloosa. I don't know if you know him or not, but he's from Tuscaloosa. Coached at Mississippi State, was the AD there. He said, this current model that we're living in college athletics, he goes, it's just not sustainable long term. So I want your thoughts on it because also I want to know, what do the interns think about it?
Yeah, I don't think it's sustainable either, Rob. And I understand, I appreciate these websites with these computer generated averages or whatever and attaching all these figures to these young men. I mean, I get it. It drives subscriptions. It drives interest. And hey, listen, I'm not knocking any of the recruiting services or the websites. I mean, they've got a right to make a living, but a lot of this information is more for them to drive subscription than it is actually. I mean, you claim you've got this computer and you run through all these numbers, but how do you attach a figure to a young man and say, well, you're worth this amount of money in NIL? I'm not a fan of it. I think it gives these young men this feeling of, well, if I don't get this much money from whatever school I go to, I'm underpaid. I mean, I think it, I'm not a fan of that at all. And I know, again, I know, the websites feel like, hey man, we got to have reasons for people to come to our site. Let's come up with this industry driven computer that attaches NIL value to every prospect out there. So we can say you're worth this much. And then the player's thinking, well, I've got this NIL computer that says I'm worth, $864,000. So unless you can come up with $864,000 for me, I've got no interest in playing at your school. So I'm not a fan of that. But getting back to what you said with John Cohen, and he certainly would know better than I. The next athletic administration position that I take will be my first, but I don't think it's sustainable. I don't want it to be sustainable. I want there to be some type of measures put in place that kind of gives us an idea of what we're doing here. Obviously, student athletes are going to benefit from their name, image, and likeness. They're going to benefit in other ways. Maybe there is some type of revenue sharing that we can do to pay athletes across the board. But while I agree with John Cohen, and I agree with every administrator that I've talked to, Greg Byrne here at Alabama, and they all say the same thing. Well, this system's not sustainable. Well, then what are we going to do? I mean, it's like when I hear the old they, who is they? Well, they've got to do something about this, or who is they and what are they going to do? Who is they and what are they going to do? I get it. We're all saying this isn't going to work, but I don't see anybody stepping up to do anything about it. I don't know that anybody can. I know we got a new NCAA president coming in. Maybe he can, the former governor of Massachusetts, maybe he can do something. Maybe the NCAA can get a little more clout and power than it's had in the past. But right now you say, well, it's not sustainable, but what other model is there? I mean, it's, and Rob, you and I've talked about this. We went from, floaties to all of a sudden diving in the deep water with no floaties on, you're forced to swim. I mean, we didn't really have a transition period here. It was going from the system that had been in place for years and years and years to this brave new world, and everybody's adjusting on the fly. Like I said, you're on the training wheels, and all of a sudden dad takes off the training wheels and says, go, and you got to keep that bike upright or you're hitting the ground. And that's what we're dealing with. I mean, again, for better or for worse, the system is the system, and everybody's trying to adjust, and everybody's trying to come up with the funds that are needed, not only to run the athletics department, but to have the NIL money in place, have the collective in place. I've seen a couple of people that are more football eccentric on the website saying, well, we got to have revenue sharing, and we got to pull from that TV money, and we got to pay all these football players an equal amount. That sounds good in theory, but what they don't take into account, football drives the bus, but football's not the only sport. As I've told you before, there's 21 sports at Alabama, 19 of them lose money. Well, they've got to be paid for. They've got to have NIL opportunities, and you can't just look at it from a football only standpoint. If it was just about football, you could finance it all and handle it. But there are other sports that are dependent on all that money too. And just because they don't have the revenue train that football has, you can't cut them out. And that's something I think that the people that are only looking at from a football standpoint think, well, there's plenty of money. There's plenty of money available. Yeah, if it was just one sport that you had to finance, but there's, 20, 21, 22, 23 other sports sometimes in these athletic departments, and they've got to be financed as well. So that's the pickle, is it's just the cost of running these athletics departments. I'm sure, Rob, has gone from being expensive to just outrageously expensive in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and this just came in from John Paul Jones and Jimmy Page that sent this in from
now you're on Led Zeppelin kick, huh?
Here we go. No, but it said, not sure if this is all football team members or this current signing class, or if this is accurate, but dang, that's a lot of money. And another, and I'm seeing this stuff, and then There's another one. Dr. May sent another one here. Coaches have to develop these players, but also have to keep them happy and on campus, meaning away from the transfer portal. Heart. Got to have heart and desire. No quit in them. And you think about somebody in vet school, in medical school, in law school. Good God, that first year, they're just trying to make you quit.
Mm-hmm.
Architecture school. My dad said when he started architecture program at Auburn in 1949, there were like 103 people, and 11 of them actually graduated. I mean, that's pretty low. I mean, that's pretty brutal. But I like what you're saying, Gary. And I was listening to Chuck Oliver over in Atlanta on his show, and I went to lunch with him right after I heard him say this. He goes about the importance of sticking it out, staying with your team, and honoring your commitment. Don't quit, hang in there and fight. He goes, I'm not just some old man out there in the front yard yelling at the clouds. Ah! It's a serious point, and we got to get a handle on this stuff. And you think about the stories that we hear about Coach Bryant, Coach Jordan, Vince Dooley, Johnny Vaught, Charlie Mack, Darrell Royal, Frank Broyles, you name it. They were all tough. Most of them had fought in war, in combat. This was nothing to them. I think we got a lot of people in athletics today, Gary, that were born on third base and think they hit a triple. That you were bigger and faster and stronger than everybody. But in the last 4 years, I think I heard yesterday, 42% of the guys Alabama has signed have moved on. You get an audition, and if you don't make the cut, you go on. But that's life.
Pro level. Now he's taking a huge step.
Hang on, Rob. I'm stepping in the studio.
Okay.
Just a second.
That's pretty much life. If you show up and you don't make the have what it takes, you're not going to be around very long. I mean, if you're some hotshot kid coming out of law school and you get hired by a law firm and they start giving you some divorce cases and some foreclosures and some bankruptcy deals, and you go, I don't want to do that. I wasn't trained for that. You're going to do what they tell you to do, or you can go into politics, I guess. But Gary, I love what you're saying, and we can get this back. We can get the train back on the tracks. You know why? Who owns college football? The fans do. And I think that's where we're going to go, because when we get to the 12-team playoff, how exciting is that going to be?
That's going to be exciting. And yeah, it's, I'm a traditionalist. I mean, I still hate that the bowl games don't mean what they once did. And I think that the bowl games hopefully they can be worked into this playoff, but yeah, I'm excited for expansion. I think that, it gives you an opportunity how they're going to work out the amount of games. I am concerned about how many games they're going to play, but yeah, I'm looking forward to the playoff, and I think it'll open it up for more teams, obviously. And who's to say that the team that's ranked 9th can't beat the team that's ranked number 1? We see it all the time during the regular season. So once we get into a playoff situation, if it's a 12-team playoff and it's narrowed down to 8 and then to 4 and then to 2, or if it's 8, 4, 2, whatever, who's to say that the last team in can't beat the first team in? I think maybe it's not like college basketball, but I think there's a lot of parity, more parity in college football than people are willing to admit. And you and I've talked about this. You can't fall into the trap of thinking, especially if you're in the Southeastern Conference blueprint, you can't fall into the trap to thinking that they don't play good football elsewhere, because they do. Yeah. And we see it every year in the bowl season. You think you've got the dominant league, and then all of a sudden one of your teams is playing a team from one of these leagues that you said, well, they don't play any defense, and all of a sudden or whatever, and you lose the game. So yeah, I'm never going to give up on college football or college sports, but get back to what you were talking about with John Cohen. And I think all these ADs feel this way, that this is not a sustainable system that we're in, but I don't know what they're going to come up with and how they're going to adjust. I trust that they will, because what we're doing right now can't continue, because let's just be honest, in a lot of cases, this is just bidding for players. That's what it is. It is. Gary, we got about 20 seconds before the break. Tell people how they can follow you. Merry Christmas, and look forward to next week. Love having you on here. You are incredible. Well, sorry, you catch me when I'm driving in, but I have to get into the radio show. But yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at GaryHarris_WVUA. You can download the Tide 109 app or Tide109.com TV site. It's WVUA23.com. We stream live with our newscast and Tider Insider TV and those shows as well. Thank you so much, Rob. Merry Christmas, buddy. Merry Christmas to you. Have a great one. We'll be right back with the AD.
What? What is that, Jan? That's a great idea. I'm running out of stuff anyways. Jan just had an amazing idea. It's your 10th day of your 12 days of Red River Christmas, and she just gave me a great idea. It's your 10 Lords of Leaping, and I'm telling you, they'd be jumping for joy over this. Come by, purchase you a new vehicle, and I'm going to give you a $500 Visa gift card. That's right. Purchase a new ride, get you a $500 Visa gift card, go and spend that on Christmas, buy your spouse a special gift, buy your children a special gift, whatever you got. Jan's got your back, and I've got your $500 Visa gift card today.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you. Hour number 2. Those egg bites are delicious. I'm telling you, got them at Trader Joe's. God, they're good. It's not like what the Army puts in those plastic containers packages called MREs, meals ready to eat. Anything, Matt, that has a 3-year shelf life, probably don't want to eat too many of those things unless you're sweating it out. Matt Dean, Iowa native, up near Des Moines and Davenport, the Quad Cities, Moline, Bettendorf, Rock Island, and Davenport. If you know the Quad Cities, you also know, guess what company is there? One of the American staples, John Deere. And they are everywhere down here. John Deere, Case HI. But Matt Dean, 31 plus years experience, 16 of them as a women's basketball coach, AD, associate AD, Rhodes College. No doubt, the most beautiful inner city campus in these here United States of America in Memphis. Nearly 2,000 students, some of the smartest people around. Matt Dean, great people over there, knows the administrative side of athletics. John Hartwell will be joining us here in about 3 minutes. And Matt, this is a great time of year. I've been talking a lot of football because Gary Harris was on the segment right before us from Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa. And I'm going to throw something at you. As a coach, you'll understand this, and you've got a son, Tyler, on the staff with Dan Lanning at Oregon. Franz Beard, GatorbackMedia.com, just sent this to me. If I'm a group of 5 coach, I'll take about 10 high school kids each year, then load up the rest of my class with transfers from the power conferences. What is going to happen, thanks to the portal, is that a lot of the 2-star and below high school kids who might get a scholarship to a MAC or Conference USA school will wind up in, Division II, D1 AA. That might be where they belong in the first place. But just the same, there is a squeeze already created that is going to funnel its way downward. Matt, as a coach, the one thing that you can't measure until you put people to the test is heart, grit, and desire. Your takeaway from Franz Beard's comments, Franz, GatorbackMedia.com.
Well, to take it a step further, I agree with what he said. I think if I was hiring a new football coach, I definitely want someone that answered, my question is how are you going to handle the portal? Because we know we're going to lose some of our players to the portal. And I think you have to do it on both sides. I think you have to be realistic. I think the evaluation process kind of wanes a little bit here, Rob, and this is my thoughts on this, is I feel bad for the group of 5 coaches because as a Division III head coach my whole career, I've had those kids that were under the radar. Maybe they lost before they got to the state tournament. Maybe their exposure was limited. I found a diamond in the rough. I developed them for 2 years. Now that kid's going to lead to better pastures when they're just ready to be the player of the year for me in a league, let's say, if I'm coaching basketball. So you got to do it both ways. Now, one of the things that's interesting is the group of 5 is now benefiting from misevaluations on the highest level, or some kids that just didn't work out culturally in the program, right?
Yeah.
So you can't just sit around and say, woe is me. You have to work harder than ever before to identify some of the kids in the portal that you can bring back for the kids you're going to lose. And I'll tell you, a great example was yesterday on signing day. Oregon was able to get a commitment from a transfer portal guy, the young man, offensive lineman from Rhode Island. Well, Rob, I told you last week, I didn't know they played football out there. And his finalists were Oregon, Nebraska, I believe Ohio State was a finalist. 4 really strong programs. I can't remember the fourth. So learning how to, the portal has made everyone's job that much more difficult. But if you can't manage it now as a coach, you're going to struggle.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I agree with you. And I think that, just like I said, my kids are 22, 24, 26, and 34. And the greatest thing that you can hear as a parent from your kids is, God, there were times, and I still do, I almost hate you because you're so hard on me and you're a hard ass. But I mean, I don't know what I am, but they go, you're right. Because you teach your kids to work, and you get a kid in sports. And Matt, you're a college guy, coach, you how many times do people want to quit? John Hartwell, you went to the Citadel. That's a real picnic. I mean, your first 36 hours there, he goes, and you left home this morning. You were under the custody of your mommy and daddy. I'm now on the first and last word out of your filthy sewers will be, sir. Do you understand me? Sir, yes, sir. I can't hear you. It shock waves, man. By the way, we've had a lot of guests, Matt Dean, and I like your background, the China, but as a hunting and fishing junkie, John Hartwell, you may be, what in the wide, Slim Pickens said, what in the wide world of sports is going on? Looks like we got a caribou. We got an elk back there. Tell me what's going on back. Is this all your trophies from Utah?
Hey, I can't take credit for all these. This is actually my father-in-law's office, so I've got to give him credit for all those mounts.
I love it.
Being on the last 3 or 4 weeks, and Matt's got $2 million worth of Waterford Crystal back there over his right and left shoulder. I had to do something to compete a little bit, so I figured I would give your listeners or your viewers some background today.
Yeah, I've got I'm here in we got back from Atlanta last night about 9:30, and we're doing it live from the Cherry Farm here in Lee Hall. And I've got behind me, I've got a banded black duck drake, which is very rare, and a great Jim Killen portrait painting of the chocolate yellow and black labs. And we've got probably 35 or 40 mounts. But of course, Mildred, Audrey, my producer, I wish we could have a roving camera, because with what Matt has, the Waterford Crystal, Thurston Howell III there, and then we've got Marlon Perkins here, John Hartwell. Don't y'all love it? The old Marlon Perkins Mutual
hey,
of Omaha's
I'm trying
Kingdom.
to get you a Mutual of Omaha, sponsorship there. So
was there ever anything better when Marlon Perkins would be up in the helicopter and Jim would be, while Jim is down below in Crocodile Creek wrestling the 18-foot Nile crocodile, it's good to know his family is covered by Mutual of Omaha's comprehensive life insurance with disability. I hope Jim would be down there. I love it, but you can't beat these backgrounds. All right, let's get to it. Merry Christmas, everybody, and thank both of y'all for taking time, as you do so often, every week possible. We love it. The AD, Audrey has named this the AD's angle, and you can't get this unless you get folks like Matt Dean, John Hartwell, and but there's so many questions. And I asked you, John, last night as we were preparing, things to talk about. And I just said, and we were on a Siri audio text, so it all came there as a giant run-on sentence. But the ever-changing role of an athletic director dealing with NIL and what's legal and what's not, how out of control will the NIL fire have to get before something is done to make college sports less like pro sports? I love pro sports, but I want them to be separate. But start with you, John, and then I want your takeaway on that, Matt. And we'll bounce around. I got a lot of questions for you, and I'm getting questions from viewers. Meatloaf has already checked in from Jacksonville, Texas. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Let's go.
Yeah, well, it's really pertinent that you asked this question, Rob, and obviously on the heels of signing day yesterday, and when I got on, I heard Matt talking about signing date. So this is a worldwide question, and I'll tell you this: I'm an early riser. I was up about 5:20 this morning, and I'd gotten a text like 30 minutes earlier from a friend of mine who I know lives in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and he texted me like 4:15. I said, "What in the heck are you doing up this early? Where are you?" And he was literally on a plane with his family, headed back to Dallas from Abu Dhabi. And he said, "I'm flying over Russia right now if you really want to know where I am." But anyway, he's a huge Clemson Tiger, was talking about signing day. You know, I know Dabo is catching some heat when the question was posed to him yesterday during his signing day press conference, and they said, you know, tell me about name, image, and likeness and its impact. And, you know, he made a reference to, our name, image, and likeness, our program has been that way in the name, image, and likeness of Jesus. And, you know, some people thought that was really good. Again, as divided as our society is. And I heard on your opening today, Rob, we're not going to get into politics, but, you know, some people really liked him saying that. Some people didn't. So,
that's not politics. Don't worry about, you know how I close every show. Don't worry about that ever. Yeah.
But you know, there's got to be some guardrails put up at some point. And, you know, I know Tommy Tuberville, Senator Tuberville from Alabama was hot on this topic. And I think he still is some. It's just how much traction can he get amongst his fellow members of Congress on this? Because what you have here, and as I was texting the conversation with my buddy early this morning, here's what the difference is. You have agents who represent professional athletes across all sports. And coaches and, you know, things like that, like our good friend Jimmy Sexton there in your backyard, Rob, and Matt as well. Those guys get 4 to 5% of new contracts, whether it's for athletes or for coaches. The going rate right now for these quote agents, and I use that term loosely because it's kind of it's not really fair to the guys who are licensed agents, such as Jimmy Sexton. The going rate for agents for name, image, and likeness right now is 20%. So even though the dollars are not as significant in some cases for these college student athletes getting NIL deals, the percentage that the agent gets is significantly higher. So you've got all of a sudden a lot of new people coming on the scene, dubbing themselves agents, representing these college kids, who many of which, without the benefit of having parents or grandparents or somebody in their life who comes from a business background or a legal background, doing these deals. And you know, we'll use the easy example. If they're getting $100 deal, they're really only getting $80 of that because these agents are taking that. And so this is taking it to a whole new level. And, you know, the other question I'm getting on a regular basis is, are there really people out there poaching? Absolutely, there are people poaching. And here's, you know, I can be candid in what I say. You've got two levels of this right now. You've got, you know, what I used to term as street agents, what used to be and still is to some case, AAU coaches or 7-on-7 coaches who have affiliations with, you know, premier student or premier athletes, shopping them around. So you still have that to some extent on the individual level. They are shopping individuals around. But you also have some people involved with some collectives who are shopping on behalf of institutions now. And so I know the term gets used an awful lot, the wild, wild west, but it is absolutely the wild, wild west with NIL right now. And again, I'm going to be a straight shooter here. In most cases, at the Power 5 level and some at the Group of 5 level, when you're talking football and men's basketball and a handful of baseball kids, it's NIL is a term that is masking pay for play right now.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's how I see it. Matt Dean, your thoughts?
And John, I'll add one to that you could probably confirm or deny. I've been told that some of those Group of 5 or lower majors, when their collectives, let's say they get a really good recruit, and a year later that kid leaves, those people that are funding that are a little upset about how can you not retain that player, coach, or whatever. And, a lot of times those things are, they're not savable. I mean, a kid goes there because maybe had a poor junior year in high school, had bad tape, had an injury, whatever, shines out, and all of a sudden they're back in the portal and they're going to go, for just example, a MAC school back to a Power 5 school or whatever. So it's just not, it's never equitable. And I learned something today. I can't believe that percentage, John. That is, I know it's accurate. That's scary. When you look at the professionals getting 4 or 5%, and some of these other folks leading our young student athletes astray. That's very disappointing what's going on right now, and it's not fixable in my mind.
Yeah, and along that line about the 20% that an agent is getting, that is unheard of. And I talked to a professional agent one time, and he said he had a client that at the end of each page, and y'all both know this because you're business guys, at the bottom of each page, it said in parentheses 4%. This is the guy who's in the Hall of Fame, NFL player. I'm not going to name him. And he looked at the first page, said 4%, second and third, and he goes, "Man, you're making 12% just in the first 3 pages." He said, no, that's a straight rate across the board. But I'll tell you, and y'all both know this in business deals, you may get paid up front to come work for a company, a 5-year deal. You may get let's say you get $1 million. Well, if you leave after year 1, you owe them 800 plus what you didn't produce in that first year. And anyone who has any sort of business acumen and understands how to read a debit sheet, balance sheet, this guy here at the bottom, hey, get out of the way, Howard Sprague. We got CPA Fred Penrod here, John Hartwell, worked in public accounting for E&Y. Matt, you are one of the, both of y'all together. It's incredible because of the brilliance in your minds. And we're going to take a break here. Mildred just said 1 minute to the break, but this is what people don't understand. The big print, as Shoney always says, giveth. The small print at the bottom of the contract that you can't read without a magnifying glass is what taketh away. So when we come back, we'll start with you, Matt. How big of a case of the red ass would you have if you are some guy that gave a bunch of money for some 17, 18-year-old kid to come to your school? What's some out of you is what we're going to call that school. What's some out of you? Remember that old cartoon character? And he leaves after 5 games of his freshman season because his mattress was too hard or his steak wasn't cooked right or something. What's your what retribution? What ability do you have to reclaim that money that you laid out front? I'm just curious. We're going to talk about it right after this quick break on the AD angle of Sidelines.
From Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here on the Thursday edition, Sidelines, www.sidelines.live, college football and basketball blitz. The AD angle here in hour number 2. Matt Dean, Rhodes College, Memphis. John Hartwell, most recently Utah State's athletic director for the last 8 years. And I know Matt's got 31 years at Rhodes. John, you were deputy AD at Ole Miss for 10 years, 3 years AD at Troy, graduate of the Citadel, the Bulldogs, Charleston, South Carolina, Low Country Stew. You know about all that great seafood. You're from Mobile. As I'm going to tell you something, man. Anybody that's from Mobile that's ever lived in Memphis that I've known, they've always said, I don't eat seafood up here. It's not really seafood because it's been frozen. So, by the way, in Memphis, we have Paradise Seafood, the pellet ice. It's fresh from Orange Beach. It's never been frozen. That is seafood. But I want to get back because both of y'all gave great answers. I want to start with this one. The real numbers in college athletics budgets. How much do college athletic departments really make in comparison to the big numbers we hear from the TV contracts and other conference tie-ins? Because I look up here and I see the University of Texas, $225 million, A&M, $230 million, Auburn, $180 million, Alabama, $192 million, Ohio State, $235 million. But how much are they making? How much are they spending on all their sports programs, scholarships and all that? How much do they really net? Because there's this crazy narrative out there that fueled NIL, that these universities have made billions of dollars off the backs of these student athletes, and they just been screwing them every way they can, just ripping them off and blah, blah, blah. They don't do anything for them. Last time I checked, if you're an athlete at Auburn and you injure your knee, you know who's going to take a look at your knee? A guy named Dr. James Andrews, probably the greatest orthopedic surgeon in the world. You've got tutors, preference for class scheduling, travel, coaching, mentoring. Rhodes College, Matt, good God, what is a scholarship? You don't give athletic scholarships, but let's say you get a 36 on the ACT like John did or you did. And
that's because I took it 3 times.
Okay. All right. But you come to Rhodes, and that scholarship, just the scholarship tuition is 70 plus, isn't it? I mean, so this is my question. I'll start with you, Matt. I want to hear from you, Matt. What do they really make versus what we think they make? Because everybody thinks colleges are just flush with cash. I don't see how that's possible. They got debt service too. Don't forget about that.
Yeah. And, at Rhodes, you got to understand our model is way different because we're non-scholarship. And heck, at Rhodes, we don't even charge for our games. But what's crazy about that is we offer 21 sports. We have 550 plus student athletes. Dang. So our average net tuition revenue out of that 65 total cost is around $20,000 a kid. You start doing the math, we're pretty doggone important to the institution. We enroll over 30 to 33% of the student body. So then, if operational budget of our college per year is probably 75 to 80 million, we're probably only getting 0.5% of that to run our programs at 4 to 4.3 million. So at the end of the day, even though we're non-scholarship, we're very important from a different type of model to our institution. Where I met John's nephew and coached him at Denison, it's no different. Denison is one of the most elite institutions in the country as well. A beautiful school in Granville, Ohio. And their endowment's 2.5 times Rhodes right now. They've got some, I believe Michael Eisner was on their board and an alum, and the famous actress Jennifer Garner was one of my favorites. But it's really interesting. I really want to hear from John on this because, quite frankly, it's easy to talk about the Texases and the Auburns, but when you start talking about Troy and Utah State, that's where you're really trying to find. That's why those places have to play those buy games. I mean, that makes your not just your football budget, it helps out your cross country team and all those things, right, John? I'm guessing.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. And so we could talk about this topic for days, but I think what's important to know is, and you're right, you alluded to the Michigans and the Alabamas and the Auburn, those in the $200+ million, and most of the time 98% of the time when people refer to their budgets, they're talking about revenue budgets. You know, from that perspective, what all in they make, which is made up of a lot of components. You've obviously got ticket sales, you've got corporate sponsorships, you've got donations, you've got licensing, you've got a whole concessions, you've got a whole plethora of items, which those numbers are bigger at the Power 5 level. If you look at a Utah State or a Troy, you know, the budget this year at Utah State is about $42 million, which is significant. I would guess that Troy's is probably somewhere in the 33 to 35 million. But relatively speaking, Utah State at 42 million is in the bottom 25 percentile of the Mountain West Conference. When you look at San Diego State and Boise State and some of those, I kind of put an asterisk by Air Force because our tax dollars are helping fund Air Force just like they do Navy and Army, and well worth it because of the the officers that they produce. But it's a little different. But here's a great example here. A lot of times you hear headlines about recruiting budgets, what people are spending on recruiting. And, whether it was at Utah State or whether it was, my time at Troy, you didn't have endless cash flow. You didn't have endless revenues. So part of my spiel to our coaches was spend it like it's your money, because there are some places that have these, and I say endless, that may be a little facetious, but it seems like endless. I know I read an article, this was 2 or 3 years ago, on the University of Tennessee's recruiting budget. And included as a line item in that budget, they were spending some crazy amount, $4.5 million on an annual basis on deadhead time for charter aircraft for recruiting. So what that means for those that aren't familiar with those aeronautical terms, deadheading an aircraft is when there's nobody other than the pilots flying on it. So it's going to pick up coaches who may be in Florida or Texas or wherever they may be recruiting. I promise you, the Utah State and the Troy budget, and I would venture to say, 100% of the group of 5 schools don't have a line item for deadheading charter aircraft to move coaches around during the recruiting cycle. So there are differences there, but it would be, and it's about bells and whistles. And again, timely with signing day, there are some things that you have to do from a bells and whistles perspective, whether it's facilities, whether it's what you're doing, on a recruiting weekend. I know it's been widespread, the article out there about the University of Texas and the weekend that Arch Manning was there, and they had like 12 other recruits. So they had like 12 or 13 recruits, and they spent almost $300,000 on that one weekend. Just great. Again, that is not the philosophy of spend it like it were your own. I mean, unless you're, as I refer to it, part of the Lucky Sperm Club, and you just got endless family money. There are, it's all relevant in terms like that, but at the highest level, people are spending to keep up with the Joneses. But I'll tie this back into NIL. If you talk to coaches today, whether it's at the Power 5 or the Group of 5 level, they've changed in their philosophy. It used to be, we got to have facilities. And that's still on the priority list, but it has been bumped from number 1. I would venture to say probably 80%, if not higher, if you went to the Power 5 and Group of 5 head football coaches and head men's and women's basketball coaches right now, even in baseball coaches, and they would say, hey, from a funding priority list, what would be number 1? They would say money for NIL, just because it's a bidding war.
Yeah. Well, I asked this question on the show a couple of days ago. Are you giving more money to your respective universities' NIL collective than you are spending on Christmas gifts for your own family? God, I mean, here's my point. I mean, Gary Harris was on just before y'all tied 100.9 in Tuscaloosa. He made a comment back in the after the Jimbo, Nick Saban spat about NIL and all that stuff. He said, Alabama fans are going, hey, coach, or, we are the pinnacle of college football. We're already giving Tide Pride and the Big Elephant Club, Red Elephant Club, all that stuff. And now you want more? I mean, I remember the great thing, squeeze your hand as hard as you can, son. Now squeeze it a little harder because somebody out there is working a little harder than you are. But my God, I'm with what they say about this is not sustainable, and the free market corrects. I mean, in the late 90s, as a financial advisor, I can remember Stewart. Remember, you can throw darts against the wall. Anybody can pick stocks and blah, blah, blah. And then March of 2000 came along. The NASDAQ was at 5,200. It went down to like 1,100 real fast. It was like walking through a minefield, click, don't move. Boom. One of your tech stocks with a 1,500 or an 1,800 PE just went, blew up because that's not sustainable, John and Matt. Y'all know that. You like a PE of 10, maybe 15, like a beta below 1%. I'm getting into some technical minutia and all, but we have a very smart audience. I know we do because I know a lot of y'all. That doesn't mean all of you are. But for those of you that might be confused, a beta is a measure of volatility. But earnings ratio, you can't trade at 1,500 times earnings. That's what we're doing in college athletics. Matt Dean, am I on to something? And are we going to have a correction, like 25% correction in the market where a lot of places go out of business, or everybody gets together and says, in the words of LA motorist Rodney King, can't we all get along?
One of the things, Rob, great point. And I don't really have a great answer to your question, but I will tell you, I think the people that are surviving in these days, and I think I used this example a few weeks ago, you have to have the ability to know who you are. What I mean by that, I'll give Utah as an example. Great coach in Kyle Whittingham. If you look at their list of signees, I bet the majority are 3 and 4 stars. Okay. Yeah. I'm not even sure they had a 5-star. I could be wrong, but not a lot. But they win 9 to 10 football games, sometimes 11 every year because they're developing kids within their model. And then now and then they'll reach out to the portal to pick a position in need. A great example that was heartbreaking was my home state this week, Iowa, who had committed for 9 months the best offensive tackle in the country. Caden Proctor, 6'8", 350, looks good at 350. Number 1 tackle in the country. And then Alabama has a visit last week, and all of a sudden, I get where the kid made a decision. And the Iowa fans are heartbroken, but Iowa just doesn't sign 5 stars. That's not their model. And if you listen to Ferentz's press conference yesterday talking about recruiting, he was just matter of fact, we'll move on. It's kind of like Belichick. We're going to Cincinnati, right? So you have to know who you are these days. If you're an SEC school in the upper tier, you better be able to keep these 4 and 5 stars. You better be able to build your collective. Otherwise, like Brian Harsin found out from a recruiting model, you're not going to be there very long. You've got to be able to go. You've got to work harder. The one thing I like about Dan Lanning, where my son is right now, is Dan came in. Everyone was complaining. We got blown out by Georgia. Well, I was at that game, and a lot of people get blown out by Georgia. They win 8 in a row. Bo Nix was one of the best portal signs of anyone in the country last year. You look at what Bo Nix did this year, they are 1 late season injury against Washington from possibly being the college football playoff. They were playing really well until Bo got dinged up. You got to have the foresight to be able to find a kid like Bo Nix in the portal. Things went wrong at Auburn. He was ready to leave, just needed to change the scenery. It wasn't because he wasn't starting. He just wanted to change the scenery. Heck, his dad's a proud to love, great player. So you got to work harder. I know that's so cliche, but coaches got to develop. They can't pout if they lose a kid to the portal. But I will tell you this. When we talk about what's Amada University, you better be able to explain to your boosters when you lose a kid. And that's where the relationship with the AD is so important, because that's the AD's side of it. And you got to be working with an AD that says, hey, listen, Rob, I know we lost, John Smith to Bama, but we got some other kids coming up that we're going to develop. We're going to beat Bama next year.
Yeah. All right, Matt, that is great take. Now to John Hartwell. let's make up this mythical booster. He's worth a couple of $1 billion. Okay. Self-made guy. That's 95% of wealth in America is first generation. First generation employs, second enjoys, and the third destroys. That's pretty much what happens. Unless you make your kids start from the bottom up. Okay. So you got this mythical booster worth $2.5 billion, and he makes a mythical product. Let's say lumber. He comes in there. Let's call him Foghorn Leghorn. Say, how we doing today there, John? I'm going to come by there and see you today. And yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're going to talk about how we're going to make What's the Matter You number one. I'll be there twixt 1:30 and 2. You going to be there? You're like, yes, sir, I'll be there. You know, you're going to miss the baptism of your grandchild, I guess. He thinks he doesn't care. But old Foghorn comes in there, and as he said, back off, boys, you're bothering me. He comes in there to your office. You being a Citadel graduate. Now, when you graduated, you were a second lieutenant, correct?
Well, if I would have gone the military route, here's what I did. I took 4 years of ROTC like everybody does.
Okay.
I would be telling a story if I said I was the most military of folks. I did learn how to carry a rifle and march and shine my shoes and do all that stuff. But I after about 3 weeks in Navy ROTC, which was a little more difficult, I switched to Air Force ROTC, which was another business management class.
Yeah.
So I did not go in active duty.
So, but has that prepared you? Now, Foghorn Leghorn, he pulls up in his 37-foot-long convertible Eldorado Cadillac with a couple of big Texas Longhorns on the front, on the front hood, and his horn goes, da-dun, 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 and he's got 3 cheerleaders in the back seat. And he comes in. Well, I see John Foghorn here. I want to know what's the matter you dun, 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 is not winning a national championship. So my producer, Mildred, and my her great niece, Petunia, have told me we're going to a break. But when we come back, Foghorn Leghorn is in your office, and he's told your administrative assistant or secretary, I don't care what he's got going on here. I'm here to see John Hartwell. So we're going to talk about that right after this quick break.
Hey everyone, my name is David Wisdom.
And I'm Shelby McNeil, and we're attorneys with Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short, your local Auburn law firm. Established in 1959 right in the heart of Auburn, Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short has grown in response to our clients' legal needs. We're a full-service law firm focusing on the legal issues our clients face.
We take pride in providing our clients with exceptional legal services, ongoing communication, and skilled representation. If you have any questions about our services, please give us a call or visit our website today.
All right. Rob Browne back here with Matt Dean over at Rhodes College in Memphis, John Hartwell in El Dorado, Arkansas. As he said this morning, 9 a.m. EDT. Most people would think Eastern Daylight Time. No, that's El Dorado time, boy. All right. So Foghorn has come in, and John, you're in there doing some line item, budget work because your background in public accounting in the private sector. I have a lot of friends that are accountants. My nephew up in Roanoke got a master's in accounting at Virginia Tech. His dad played college football at Virginia Tech. And then one of my other nieces lives in Brookhaven, Atlanta. Her husband's with KPMG, so he commutes every Sunday afternoon from Hartsfield in Atlanta to New York, and his biggest client is Goldman Sachs. So, I understand a lot about accounting, engineers, architects. I know about hush puppies and brown suits, okay? My dad, being an architect, has a lot of pocket protectors. But you're in there trying to do some work, and old Foghorn comes in there and says, I say, well, you open there. I'm going there to see him right now. We're going to talk about why we ain't winning a national championship. Now, what's your reaction going to be, and how do you control a guy like that? Because Matt talked about the boosters and the involvement and all, and this is just a mythical character that sells lumber. And his school, he has Texas Longhorns on the front hood of his 37-foot-long Eldorado Cadillac he inherited it from his Aunt B in Idaho.
Well, first off, to connect with Foghorn, I would have to tell him, if you get in any accident, front end accidents on anybody, I've got some other racks here to be able to provide for him. So that
there you go.
That's one. We've got to get some common ground established, right off the bat for him. But you bring up an interesting question here, and this ties back to something Matt said in our first segment, where when you've got the transfer portal and you've got people out there bidding, going to the highest bidder from an NIL standpoint, it is hard to build affinity to student athletes and to a program with donor. It's becoming harder. You used to have Johnny or Jill who would come in to be a student athlete. They'd come in and fans could follow them from being a wide-eyed, know-it-all freshman who really had no clue to somebody who, is either going in the WNBA or the NFL or going off to law school. And they built an affinity over 4 to 5 years with those kids. And they invested because they knew they could see the progression and see how this was taking young boys and girls into becoming productive young men and women. In today's world of NIL, that's a little more difficult. And I'll give this example. When you think about what institutions have done in terms of capital campaigns, obviously facilities are really important. And in the past, Foghorn has has built a football practice facility, a new baseball indoor facility, anything like that. And Foghorn can not only come himself and, pat himself on the chest and say, look what I built, but he can show, his kids and grandkids and the cheerleaders he's got in the back that you referred to. All of those folks, he can say, hey, I built this. This is what I did for the program. Whereas now with NIL money, you take, Johnny, who Foghorn was convinced to invest $200,000 in NIL last year as a freshman or as a recruit. Well, Johnny has left the confines of Austin and found it much more appealing to, I'll go to Matt's home state. He found Ames much more appealing than Austin. So he's taken off and gone to Iowa. So that's where it becomes a challenge because, whereas student athletes have come and gone, the number of wins have fluctuated. Foghorn has always been able to go back to the facilities he's built, the scholarships he's endowed, the coaching positions that he's endowed, and those have lasted through time. Whereas if he gives to Johnny the individual and Johnny says, hey, I'm better dealing you, I'm going to the next deal, that's tough. So the approach you've got to take with Foghorn is to say, hey, we need you to continue to invest because if your goal, which, obviously from a realistic standpoint, there's probably 35 or 40 schools out there that can say, hey, we are investing to win a CFP championship. Yeah. Anybody else is kind of just playing the game. But in those schools, you've got to say, hey, for us to compete to win a championship, and even more so than ever, there's a clear a clear correlation between investment in and success output. You're going to see it's going to be like the salary cap in the NFL or the salary levels. I wish there is going to have to be some type of salary cap, but it's going to be those schools who invest the most money are going to get the very best student athletes. One final point here, and I'll shut up for a minute, but this is going back to what Matt said. And the rest of the institutions out there can't just say, well, gosh, why are we even competing? Let's just not even do this. Because I think you do have to find your niche. Just like you said, Coach Lanning at Oregon or Coach Whittingham at Utah. You got to find your niche. And the other thing that's really important here is there is going to be a pendulum switch back a little bit where some of these kids, they're going to chase the money up front. But if they're sitting the bench and they feel like they have a legitimate shot, which most of them feel like they do, at playing at the next level, playing on Sundays, if they're sitting the bench for a year or two, it doesn't matter how much money they have in their pocket. Well, there is a point to where they'll sit the bench, but they're going to try to go someplace where they can play, where they can showcase their talents, and that's what that next tier of schools has to do to capture those to be able to be successful.
Great take, Matt Dean.
Well, John nailed it, and I'll tell you what all this is leading to, and it happened last year, and I don't know how much we've ever discussed this guy, but one of my favorite college basketball coaches, I think he's won 2 national championships at Villanova, Jay Wright. At the age of 60, Jay said, "You know what? I'm done. I'm walking away." Now, Jay, I mean, one of the best looking dudes in America. He dresses the best. He could be a TV analyst for anyone, right? But he is done. Now, let's look at Coach K. Coach K, 75, 76, he coached all the way up to 75, 76.
Mm-hmm.
This era is getting great people to make decisions earlier in their careers. I am telling you, what John described is real. It's happening. So what it does for you as a coach, it's like, do I really want to coach knowing I'm going to have to do some of these things from a sacrifice standpoint and lose a kid that I've developed 2 years into, let's say? Because it's not just happening at Watsamata U, baby. I'll give you an example. You go in the portal this year in the SEC, I think A&M had 25 kids in the portal. Alabama had 20-plus kids in the portal, okay?
Yeah.
2 of them ended up in Oregon, Kyrie Jackson and Trayshawn Holden. So the reality of the situation is kids aren't going to be happy. They're going to run to get the money. A lot of times they're running because of those 20% people telling them where to go, and they're not following their heart. And it's just a really hard time to coach or be an AD right now at these institutions. It is.
Yeah,
Matt,
I mean,
sorry.
Go ahead, John.
One other point just on that, that is a byproduct, I think, and you'll see it here over the next 2 or 3 weeks when the NFL regular season comes to a close, the bowl games are over, and you have some NFL coaching vacancies.
Yep.
You know, I think if you would have asked the question 5 years ago to successful high-level college coaches, they said, you know, I really have no desire to be in the NFL. But here's what's changed. Again, this goes back to NIL and the transfer portal.
Yeah.
You actually have more roster stability in professional sports now than you do in collegiate sports. And I think you are going to see in this year's cycle, you're going to see a handful of high-profile college coaches jump to the NFL.
I think you're exactly correct.
You know, and along the lines of what y'all are both saying, you've got these boosters like Foghorn Leghorn at Watsamata U in Austin, Nebraska. You know, we'll just say it's in Austin, Nebraska. I'm not, you know, but
it's cold in Austin, Nebraska.
Hold on a second there, boys. One of my oil wells just struck gold, black gold, Texas tea. Now, the first thing you know, okay, we know the deal. A&M and Texas. It's crazy, but it's insanity. I mean, I 31 plus years as a financial advisor. I work with people in wealth management, estate planning. The LSC is a real deal. The Lucky Sperm Club. You're right. The only thing a lot of these people ever did successfully was come out of their mother's womb without getting hurt. You know, they don't have a concept of business, how to read a debit sheet, a balance sheet, a ledger. They don't understand all that stuff. Matt, what makes someone like you so important in this big giant puzzle is at a place like Rhodes. Now you've got an endowment at Rhodes, probably somewhere between $300 and $400 million. And you know, my mom went to Hollins up in Virginia, learned how to balance a book on her head, Hollins College up in Roanoke, and finished at Southwestern, which is now Rhodes. A lot of her friends went there. Some of the Lloyd Templeton. We talk about so many great people. They've got a great endowment. You're talking a school with less than 2,000 students. They have an endowment bigger than a lot of big state universities. And John, you just got back from Utah. You know, I don't know if you knew a guy in the real estate business out there, Jim Swarthout. Remember him from Fletch? Jim Swarthout. Never forget that Chevy Chase when he was Harvey Poon. He goes, "What kind of name is Poon?" He goes, "Comanche Indian." He goes, "So I've got a few questions for this insurance exam." He goes, "You are currently alive, sir." And he goes, "Boy, what are you trying to find out?" But you were out in Utah. Where does the money come from in a place like Utah? I mean, most people around here think about Utah. We know in Ogden, that's where the railroads, met, but it's an incredible state. I had one of my closest friends lived in Park City for 10 years while he was in school at Utah. And he's not a doctor, but it just took him a while, He's redshirted a couple of times. But what, John, you've got, you were at Ole Miss, but where does the money come from in Utah?
Yeah, I mean, you've got a lot of companies that are based in Utah, and there is more wealth coming in because a lot of folks from Silicon Valley and from the Seattle and Portland areas are migrating to Utah, and you've got companies such as Overstock.com or doTERRA Skin Products. Obviously, the Larry H. Miller Group, who owned the Utah Jazz for a long time, had a bunch of car dealerships and AMC theaters. So there is a lot of money in the state of Utah, and that's why Salt Lake City is one of the fastest growing cities, large cities in the country.
Yeah. Well, it's just, and you look at Memphis, Matt, most of your students at Rhodes come from the South, but everybody I know that went to Rhodes is very successful. It's a liberal arts college. But I remember one time we were working on a bond deal for the refectory and the student dormitory, 143 additional rooms. And I'll never forget meeting with your CFO and your president. The financial numbers on that school are strong. I mean, they're really strong. And I remember that particular year, you had 38 students from Rhodes, pre-med majors, all 38 accepted on the first swing to medical school. As they say down south of I-10 in places like Youngsville, Louisiana, I mean, it's amazing. But you're there every day, both of y'all as administrators. So thank you. And we need people like you to not step out of the ring of competition, Matt. Okay, please. Maybe you could sell the Waterford Crystal behind you. Thurston Howell III just gave me a bid on it. Muffy and I would like to speak with you after this show and do lunch around 12-ish at the Peninsular Club. But go ahead.
No, Rob, I think if you bump your agency fee to 7% and keep marketing me, I'll take that next gig. I have no problem. But, the great thing about, and I think John will attest to this, the great thing about what I've done and what John's done is just we come across some of the most incredible student athletes. I mean, a place like Rhodes, I was fortunate at Denison to coach John's nephew 1 year in basketball. And I was given the opportunity by Charlie to even write a recommendation letter for him in the post-grad opportunities. And I can't tell you how many doctors and lawyers and just successful businessmen and women I've coached that have touched a lot of people's lives. Just the good keeps on giving, right? And, we are strong. We're over $400 million endowment. We're very selective. And you got to know who you are if you coach in this institution. That's why I recruited a lot of doctors that were 30 plus ACTs, right? Because we knew there was a certain market we couldn't reach out to, and you just got to know your market. And I think that's the thing. Getting back to my initial point about NIL and the portal right now, if you don't adapt, you're going to be out of the industry. Everyone's got to adapt. You got to find your niche. And to me, a lot of it still stems from development. If you're in coaching and you're not developing talent, shame on you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like leaving the groceries in the back seat, guys. After about a week, the flies get them, the green flies. But hey, I want to say this. It is Merry Christmas to everybody listening. Go out and help somebody with the expectation to get nothing in return. Don't give to get, give to give. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. I was watching the news in Memphis, guys, this morning. I don't know what's going on. All these people from California and New York moving down south. But I've never seen Memphis have so many slumlords on the local TV. And we're expecting 3-degree temperatures here in Memphis tomorrow morning. And we got an apartment complex in Memphis with over 300 units. They have no heat or gas. How do you screw that up? That's like going through the drive-thru at a fast food restaurant during lunch and the shake machine doesn't work or they can't make French fries. Somebody didn't do their job. But anyway, I've been on with two of the smartest people around. We're going to do this again next week, guys. The AD Angle. And I want to tell you how much we appreciate you taking time to join in with us because you can't. I learned more today, and I've gotten a lot of people texting me and saying, "Damn, these guys are smart." He said, I think they know how to read a balance sheet, debit and ledger, because I think a lot of people, they just throw money around. They don't realize that it's real. You're playing with real bullets, and you make mistakes. You know, there are only so many foghorn leghorns out there that'll give you money. But God, this is some of the most insightful banter back and forth. And I know Jimmy missed it because he's having to drive to Knoxville today to get away from the snowstorm that's coming. But I'll tell you what, I think the future of college athletics is as bright as ever. And the free market will correct this, because there's only so many people who are going to get burned throwing big money at teenagers who don't show up for work. Because 95% of life guys showing up with a positive attitude, a couple extra boxes of shells, some walking around money, full tank of gas, positive attitude, and finding excuses to win. Hey, we'll see you tomorrow. We are out of here.